Hello everybody, this is Todd Creager. What I do is I help couples heal from infidelity, which is going to be the subject of my video today. I also help couples rekindle passion, and I help individuals overcome trauma using EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a phenomenal trauma treatment that I use. Today's topic I am titling Overcoming Infidelity, an emotional story of reconciliation. So I want to give you one of many of my successful cases I've had with this challenging situation of infidelity. And I work with couples, and I have a program called the Infidelity Cure. Those are some of the main ways I reach out to people who have infidelity and help them have a process where they can heal. So this is an emotional story of reconciliation. You know, when we're working with these issues, sometimes there are complications, and oftentimes there's both people have things to heal, both in the relationship and also before the relationship. So I wanted to give you kind of a meaty couple issue, because a lot of times it is that challenging, it is that complex, and yet, as you'll see, they're doing a heck of a good job despite a challenging history. There's a couple that really did fall in love with each other. They came from families where there were some challenges. I'm going to say his name is, let's call him, because I have to change the title, and I didn't think of a name before, so I'm going to call him Peter. And I will say her name is Sandra. So you have Peter and Sandra. Okay, and Peter came from a family where his dad got injured, but did his best to really basically raise the two kids, because they came from a challenging financial situation, and the mom had to work many jobs to make up for the dad not working. And so, and money was an issue. And one of the things that this family, different family members did was gamble a lot. It's a little forecasting of what I'm about to talk about. So that was how it all started with him and his family. On her side, and Sandra's side, it was about a family where she really didn't have a biological father, and her mom was depressed and needy and self-absorbed. It was really all about mom. And so she was criticized a lot, and basically her needs were ignored a lot. She had to work to take care of everybody else, but her needs came last. So this couple gets together. I'm just giving you a little background on their family because it comes into play. And they really found there was a sense that the two of them were a haven for each other after some challenging times. He did have some drug issues as a teenager and a younger adult. And but they did get together and seemed to do fine. Problem is, he started to slip into a gambling addiction, and he was, there's also different kinds of infidelity. This was definitely a financial sort of infidelity. He really drained a lot of their savings, and she had no idea what was going on. And when she did find out, she was very angry, very disappointed, very hurt, very angry. In one of the ways she responded to this was that she had an affair. And when he discovered that she had an affair, it kind of straightened him up, and he decided to give up his addiction, and she said she would give up, she wouldn't cheat. So he really changed his lifestyle, which was good. This was before he met me, they met me. And he stopped gambling, but she ended up having more stresses in her life. And then what happens is she has a mom who's very critical, and in her life what happened is she got into a work situation that, and a few other things I think too, but I'm not going to talk forever about it, where she was triggered and felt inadequate, felt not good enough. And then she still had feelings about the gambling, and then she probably felt also, because she's definitely a person who has a sense of ethics and values. She felt guilty about cheating on him. So what she did is sabotage it, and she cheated again. She actually first, I got ahead of myself. She actually had sort of an emotional collapse, a breakdown. And in that period of time where she was healing, she met somebody and had a second kind of affair, infidelity. And so when Peter found out about that, he was absolutely devastated that it now happened the second time. And then she promised to not do that again. And then when the first guy reached out one more time, she planned to meet with him. And then when Peter found out what Sandra was doing with this first guy, even though they hadn't met, that really devastated him again, that she had not given it up. So you can see there was a messiness into that. And of course, there's such a big breach of trust. Her trust was breached with his gambling, and his trust was breached with her infidelity. And then it happened again, and then even a third time. And this is when they seek my help. And he was very broken about it, such a state of distrust. He didn't know how he was going to put himself back together, and he was really depressed. He put a lot of stock in trusting her after the previous times, and when it happened a third time, it was really a lot for him. So how does this couple go from where they were then to where they are now? Okay. Where they are now, I'll tell you where they are now. And then I'll tell you what some of the steps that the two of them and I did to help. Where they are now is he still has triggers. He's not perfectly healed. This is, I started with them in the summer of 20, I would say it's probably been about 7 months of working with them, maybe 8 months. And he still has his bouts of doubt and distrust, and yet they're very affectionate with each other, and just mutually affectionate. She's really been such a great listener to his feelings, to his depression, and he understands and sees and mirrors to her inner innocence, despite the fact of what she did. And so they're having a baby. They're going to have a baby very soon, actually, and very excited about it and really scared about it because it's a big deal. It's their first child. And of course, this was a relationship where they weren't sure if they were even going to be together. They were very close to divorcing, and here they are, more in than ever, and they have a child very soon on the way. So how did they get there? How did they had all the stuff, she was like a breath of fresh air to him after feeling like he had been mistreated by other women, and she was so good and so there. And then this happens where she cheats on him. Of course, again, the first time was revenge cheating. She felt so pushed aside and discarded, just the same way she felt with her mom, by his self-absorbed behavior of spending, his gambling addiction and spending all this money. That she did that, but then, like I said, there was those repeated ones where she had promised. She promised to not do that again. So it was like, well, I've heard this story before, because now you're promising again. So how did they get there? How did they get to this much better place? Not a perfect place yet, not a perfectly healed place, but a better place. And then moving forward. Well, let's start with her. She, unlike the other times, she demonstrated a really willingness to do the work, to really look at herself, to really see where that was coming from. She did that a lot with me, but even with other therapists in the past. She started to take a good look at her self-esteem. And it got clearer and clearer to her husband that she really was doing the work on herself. There was also the way that Sandra listened to him. She listened and recognized it. She didn't ask him to just get over it and say, this time I'll be different. She got that she had been given several chances and that she had breached his confidence, and she really let him have his distrust and his anxiety without trying to change it. And she got it. And it was difficult. It's the last thing she wanted. She felt terribly guilty watching his anguish about this. This is not a person that she wanted to hurt, and yet she did those behaviors. I mean, people oftentimes we're complicated. We have different parts, and there was that part that acted out. But she also demonstrated this really clear part that cared greatly for him, and that even though she sabotaged him, and even that part of her that loved him, that it became clearer and clearer that that part of her was the stronger part, in just how she listened and shared and communicated and didn't push him. And of course, here's another part that I remember that I'm glad I didn't forget, is that before she was going with this one single friend who was kind of immature and self-absorbed, she would go to places with her and leave her husband for a long period of time. She stopped doing that. This was before pregnancy, before she knew she was pregnant. They really knew that they had a lot of work to do, and she demonstrated that. She just changed her behavior. She said no to her girlfriend, who continued to say, basically, act like a single woman. And whereas before she would say yes, this time she consistently said no. On his edge of the equation, what he did was recognize his own addiction, the gambling addiction, and how that contributed to such distrust on her part and anger. He too became a really good listener. He worked hard on himself with me and others, with his anxiety and with his depression and with his distrust. He practiced being vulnerable when there's a part of him that wanted to shut down. He shared a lot. He didn't share much earlier. He had those secrets. He shared. He was very open. And I think that gave her more of an opportunity to listen because he was more vulnerable. At the same time, shifting back to her, who grew up in a family where she was never heard, it was not easy for her to be open and share some of her feelings. And it became a very honest relationship. She was able to really talk her feelings out about how hurt, how angry she was, how rageful she was, which those are not the kind of conversations they had before. And I've said over and over again with couples that when there's any kind of symptom, including infidelity, the most important thing is to have a much deeper, open communication. And they demonstrate that in session, between sessions, even when they had some dark times where he just started to get into, what am I doing? It's going to happen again, and living his life waiting for the axe to fall, which was validated by me. What I was doing was, what I did is some eye movement desensitization and reprocessing with him, because he was traumatized by these discoveries. I did that work with him. I did some work with her on that, as well as her relationship with her mother, and helped her recognize her own worth and the importance of setting better and better boundaries with her mother. A lot of times, the unresolved issues with our parents enter into the relationship. So we did some of that family of origin work with her, as well as we did some EMDR trauma work with him, so that he was less triggered and he was more desensitized to those memories. It doesn't mean that he forgot that it happened, and he still has had fears because of the multiple times it happened, but he's been able to so much better manage it and love her. And when they found out that they were going to have a baby, his first thought is it mine? Understandable fear, and it's his. And he also felt just an overall fear of the future. So I have helped him with that. I've helped him acknowledge his fears, but not get so caught up in it. So we did some cognitive behavioral work with him too, to see the positive. I also helped him focus on why, all the reasons why this relationship really does seem different. It feels different, it sounds different, they communicate differently. And so they really have worked on this to the point where they're one of the most loving, genuinely loving couples I've seen, even though there's still fear that goes through his body. And you know, and again, I think what makes this good is not only the processing I've done with him, but knowing that she's someone, he goes to his wife for his fears. He's not afraid to tell her, I'm afraid you're going to do this to me again. And she looks at him and she goes, I get it. Why wouldn't you feel that way? I'm not going, so she would acknowledge it, say, I'm not going anywhere. I am not that person anymore. I feel better about myself. I'm settled. And of course, now that we're having this baby, well, I am dedicated to our family. And so it's a beautiful story, to be honest with you. I've loved watching them grow, and I have total faith that they will continue to grow, and that his fear of the future, he has had a tendency to worry even before this whole thing, and probably use drugs to self-medicate and then gambling to self-medicate. And I think he's going to also continue to develop the skills to self-soothe and trust and just rest. Part of his issue is learning to rest and not try to achieve total certainty. There isn't any in life when it comes to relationships, but they have such a high probability of making it work that I've been insisting that he practice enjoying it. And I helped her stop beating herself up for what she has done. She's come a long ways. So I just want to share that beautiful story with you. I think that's possible for many couples. And hopefully you could listen to this and learn from this and know that even in this situation with multiple infidelities, and they both had different kinds of infidelities, that there is hope. That's all I have to say for now. This is Todd Creager, making the world safe for love.